All right, we had some some follow up this week, as expected, after Tiffany Stratton's cash in last week. I thought they did a good job with it.
Yeah.
I think there's still some questions to be answered regarding exactly what Tiffany is going for. I mean, she isn't pandering babyface on week one, which is good, because I don't know that would be believable. And, she said, I beat all your favorites. She's kind of gloating, but at the same time, she took out Nia Jax in a clever way. They gave Naomi a chance, which was one of my concerns last week, is they gave her a chance to stand up for herself and say, hey, I was going to win this if not for you. And she got to enter a four-way match to try to get a title shot. My only couple issues just sort of aren't a big deal, but coming out of it is just wish the announcers would take a stand. I know they don't.
Yeah.
It seems like they don't want to tip their hand that Tiffany isn't a full-fledged babyface, but if she's going to be babyface, they don't want to turn fans against her if that's the journey that we're on. Right. But I like my announcers who defend the integrity of a title match. And obviously last week, Tiffany interrupted a match in progress. It was selfish. Yeah. It was something she shouldn't be, that should be held against her to some extent. Even if you balance that out by praising, well, there's a greater good. She took out Nia Jax, and that was a necessary evil. And the other thing is just, I think the fans for months wanted to see Nia Jax showing up by somebody who they could cheer without reservation. And I think Tiffany gave them some reservation, including tonight. But now they're setting a Bayley against her. Bayley's a babyface, not the most charismatic, red-hot babyface at the moment, but a respected veteran. And so she won the four-way. She'll face Tiffany next week. Your thoughts, Chris?
Well, I think Bayley certainly got a bigger reaction than I expected her. Not that she's cool necessarily, but seeing the kind of more thunder applause she got was surprising. Setting her up as a foil to Tiffany, I think, is a good pairing. I look forward to their chemistry, but you're right. I mean, Tiffany interrupted last week a match that it appeared Naomi had in the bag, right? I mean, and that was a killer match last week. So that selfishness angle, right? I hope they follow up on that. And it seems like in this Triple H era, I mean, the way he's booking, actions have consequences, and not just consequences in week 1 or 2, but sometimes it takes several weeks for those consequences to really emerge. So hopefully they come back around to it.
And last week I said if the goal, I mean, the crowd popped, but to me it didn't. It felt like a clumsy babyface turn or a potentially short-term ill-advised non-babyface turn in the sense that they built up to the moment. And, that was like a moment the fans really wanted to enjoy. And WWE was trying to have their cake and eat it too. It's like, let's get the crowd pop and have Nia Jax get showing up. But I'm not like steadfast. You can never have fans have to make a tough choice or, it's not always the home team against the away team. The protagonist and the antagonist, as Jim Ross would say, the heel and the baby faces. Sure. Triple H would say at the beginning of a Netflix debut. But at the same time, is that ultimately taking something away from fans that they wanted? Now, if the idea was, we want Tiffany to be a big star, heels don't always get along. We'll throw two baby faces in the ring against both of them and let them battle it out. And as it all kind of shakes out, all will be well. Tiffany will be a heel. Mike Steff in the chat room says Stratton is still a heel. She's playing to the crowd going, it's Tiffy time. And baby faces do that. But Braun Breaker was doing that, and he's been kind of a tweener. And part of Levesque's booking has been, for better for worse, and every situation is different, putting situations out there where he feels like he's not telling fans how to feel. Now, my argument is wrestling is best. I would say, like the NHL, when you got a home team and an away team, you're cheering for your home team. Why fight that? You get to control it. Right. Neutral site games in the NHL are pretty boring, unless you're watching two mega stars and it's a playoff game or something. But, for the most part, why mess with that just because people say, oh, baby faces and heels are passé? It's like selling out crowds of people cheering Cody against heel Roman or cheering Sammy against the Bloodline. Whatever. That's what's selling tickets right now. So, so we'll see. Sadler version 3 says, I think she will slowly transition to a face. And I wouldn't be surprised by that. Chris, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's pitting her against Nia Jax and continuing to pit her against Jax and Candice LeRae, I think is a way that they're moving her into that face role. But I'm with you. I'm not sold on it. And I don't even think that given what we've seen will play to her natural strengths. So I'm curious to see what kind of babyface she would actually be, because she's not going to be, with the Barbie from the Barbie movie, right? With the kind of inquisitive naivete, right? We've seen more to her. So what I've seen with Levesque's booking, as you said, is an approach to nuance that, while I can appreciate as adding a layer of complexity and moral ambiguity to these characters that are often archetypal, it does reduce some of the power of the narrative between good and evil, right? Which is what wrestling is fundamentally about. Their morality plays. And
there are exceptions that feel special, and those
Sure.
special exceptions should be a big money match, not some mid-card thing or something to just like try to wear a badge of honor that says I'm not an old school booker, which is a false premise. That it's because I think it's timeless. You want home teams and away teams in the NHL. It's going to be that's the case forever. They're not going to start randomly having away games everywhere or neutral site games everywhere. So yeah, but you do want exceptions now and then when it's just so big, it's got to happen. But that's my argument: is save it for when it really counts. Yeah,
I think we're on the same page.
Yep, cool. Well, let's read a couple more comments on this. Ken Arnold says, one of the things I noticed tonight, the SmackDown women's roster, much like Raw, really needs new blood. We've seen all the women involved in that four-way in every possible combination. However, he adds, I understand why WWE will wait until after WrestleMania, most likely in May when the draft happens. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe we'll see some people return sooner than that. Ken Arnold adds, Charlotte returning and Becky coming back at some point will boost things, but only for so long before it's more of the same. They are more of the same. They just will be fresher because they've been away a while. So do you agree with that premise that Naomi, Belair, and Bayley, and Jax, and Tiffany, and LeRae, that combination of those six interacting tonight is stale? I'm not ready to say, I get why someone would say that, but I'm not ready to say it. I think Bayley, I think she's still trying to figure out who she is as a 30-something-year-old veteran. It's just she hasn't quite found her voice and her character yet, her persona that's going to catch on. I don't even know if she's trying that hard. I mean, it just sort of feels like she's kind of going out there and being Bayley, and it's, I don't know, it's just sort of there. But there's a legacy respect that she has earned and has. Naomi, I think, is as good as she's been as a character, as a persona, and I think Nia Jax is as good as she's ever been. And Belair, I mean, I'm waiting for something fresh for her. It seems like, we'll see how things play out with the Jade Cargill angle, and Candice LeRae's being used well. So I don't necessarily agree with that premise, but I also can understand somebody looking at these 4 or 5 or 6 and going, I'm really ready for some new blood from NXT or returning Charlotte and Becky. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I don't think the pairings are stale, and maybe I would have said that 2 weeks ago, but that match between Nia Jax and Naomi really did something for me, and it seemed actually to do something for a lot of people, right? That show up and show out was something I kept seeing. So I don't think it's stale. I think the problem is they've woven all of those people into the same story or into the similar orbit. And so there's nothing new that's happening necessarily with the bulk of them. Then you've got people like Blair Davenport, who just is gone, right? Absolutely. We have no idea where she is. Now that SmackDown's 3 hours, she could come back. Shotzi, who's down in NXT, right? So there are some people that could come back up and get fresh pushes that would allow for diversification of the story, I think. That's where, for me, the staleness may be. It may not be a word I use, but I understand why somebody would.
Yeah. Very good. CJ La Chapelle, cool name, says in a super chat, so we'll get it right on the screen, I am confused. I thought they were about to move Bayley to Raw. This brings up a good topic, which is even Joe Tessitore seems surprised by the transfer window. He's like, apparently announcers were part of the transfer window. We're on SmackDown. I thought they did a good job wearing blue and acted enthusiastic about being on SmackDown, not acting like it's a B show, or they just embraced it. And I mean, not in a way that's over the top. Clearly, Netflix is a shiny new toy. They had Rock and Hogan and Cena and Triple H and, big matches. But people understand it's a new platform. It may or may not be obviously the A show. I think USA paid big money. WWE wants both to be successful, and I think they'll keep them pretty even, especially because they have different platforms now. So they're reaching different audiences. They want people to watch both shows. That's the whole point of a roster split. That said, this transfer window has been poorly explained, and it's to the point where it's like back when Vince McMahon, you're like, does he even care enough to even have an internal, framework for it? Do they have an internal framework for this, Chris, or are they sort of winging it and hoping nobody cares enough to ask, or they think it doesn't matter even if people do?
I mean, I've got a couple trains of thought. I mean, the one is that my guess is with the amount of money that Netflix has spent and has committed to spending is they're still negotiating who they want on their roster. And that's probably going to be determined somewhat by their algorithm, right? They're going to determine who gets the biggest pops and who gets the biggest rating with their version of ratings. So I think they've set up the transfer window as a nebulous idea with no definite time period so that they can pick and choose how they want things to settle out. That's my take on it and why it's been so ill-defined, which I think has unfortunately left real people with real jobs getting shuffled around in ways maybe they didn't expect, right? I couldn't tell if there was a little passive aggression behind Joe Tessitore's, hey, we didn't even know, right? I was trying to listen through like, okay. So I think they're keeping it open because they want to see where the dust settles. That's my take on it.
And I mean, nebulous is a good word. I mean, for this. So I was kind of hoping for some clarity by today. Who is on which roster? CJ, I'm with you. I'm confused. I thought they were about to move Bayley to Raw. I wasn't really tracking who was for sure going to move where because I just didn't think it was worth my mental energy because I didn't get a sense that they necessarily were finalized on what they were going to do. Maybe they weren't, but I mean, CJ's not alone. I think some people were expecting certain moves, and like, at what point is this? How long is this window, and when are you going to tell us who's on what brand? I wouldn't say that Bayley. The fact that Bayley is going to lose next week in all likelihood, I don't get the sense they're setting up Bayley to end Tiffany's reign after 1 week. They want you to think that's a possibility for 1 week. I mean, they're going to do a half-hearted job without like embarrassing themselves by overselling it, but they want you to think it could happen. I think Bayley loses, and that's when she goes to Raw. That's sort of an old. It's weird they add that to modern wrestling, but the old days, if wrestlers leave and get territory, they do a job to a top star on the way out. Yeah, and it's Triple H knows that history. And I mean, now that they're in different platforms, there is a different audience for both shows more than ever. So that's CJ. That's my answer. I think Bayley will be on Raw 2 weeks from now, after losing to Tiffany. Goodfellas suggestion for Bayley. I like Bayley leading a faction. Did wonders for Damage Control. Do a new crew. I almost think she would be. I like alone. She does feel kind of lost and bland. If she were. And I don't want her to replay what she did, but she can find a new spin that's true to herself, but a new spin on leading 2 or 3 wrestlers, especially call-ups from NXT. I think something like that could work for her.
Yeah. Something with like a punk rock energy.
That's with her hair and the shaved on the side. Like she's got to find something. I don't know what her passion in life is, or some snippet of something she's into that they can amplify and market. It's got to feel authentic. You don't want to come across, and sorry, Adam Copeland, but you like, I'm trying hard as a 51-year-old to seem like reinvent myself, seem cool, seem edgy. Pun not intended, but it's there. Yeah. Like it's dangerous. You got to be careful as far as that goes. And I don't think Copeland's like an embarrassment, but it's like you can tell he's kind of walking a line, and some people are pushing back on him. So you got to be careful about that. Yeah. Let's pause and introduce ourselves. This is the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Post Show on Friday, January 10th, 2025. I am Wade Keller, host of the show, the editor, publisher, and founder of the Pro Wrestling Torch weekly newsletter and the website PWTorch.com. Check it out every day for flashback articles from 5, 10, 15, 20, even 30 years ago, Raw reports that I wrote back in 1995 covering Raw. It's kind of fun to see what I was saying on our relatively short, but Raw was only an hour in the newsletter because it was pre-website. We didn't have long reports, but it's kind of fun to see what I'm saying was said on commentary and what was going on then. So we put those up weekly, and NXT reports from 10 years ago. It's like fascinating to see what was going on. And she debuted 5 years ago. He debuted 10 years ago. That's cool. So we got that. We got live TV coverage of Raw, Dynamite, SmackDown, NXT, PLEs, Impact, pay-per-views, all that stuff, and breaking news stories and editorials. Some really cool, good writing with a variety of opinions on what's going on in wrestling. Chris, you are among them. Chris Adams, welcome. You are my co-host tonight on the SmackDown Post Show. Why do I have a Raw logo up, and why has nobody told me that? Did you notice?
I see it now. No, I think you
I
were
clicked
like
the wrong button. There we are.
You said I got the logo up, and I'm like, okay, cool. He's got it. He's rocking around.
I did get a logo up. I'm all confused here. Chat, I'm disappointed. Feel free to correct me anytime, anybody. I'm never going to be, if I'm wrong, call me out. I don't want it to like sit there. And if I'm wrong sometimes, I'm live. I talk for hours at a time. I'm going to mishear and say things wrong. So my ego I will not like shatter on the screen if someone says, oh, wait, hey, you made a mistake or you're wrong on that. So, yeah, I'm sadly you didn't notice, but trust me, there's people going, well, I thought this is a SmackDown post show. Why is there our logo on the screen? Wade's an idiot.
Our conversation was so compelling.
There we go.
Nobody was looking up, right?
Yep.
Anyway, I'm Chris Adams.
Hi, right? Chris. Yes. Yep.
And I write the hits and misses for SmackDown, which usually comes out on Saturdays, unless I have a super big weekend. But it's awesome. I have a great time writing and a great time always co-hosting with you. So thank you for having me back.
It's great to have you back. I love talking wrestling with you, Chris.
Yeah.
Let's tell people how they can talk with us. You can email us, wadekellerpodcast@gmail.com. And this is great if you're watching live. We check the mailbox, the inbox. But also, if you don't watch us live, but you want to get your thoughts or a question on the show, that's the way to do it. If you're watching Raw, Dynamite, or SmackDown live, send us a question. We'll take a look at it, maybe include it in the show, and then you can listen back later on YouTube or on our podcast feed. Speaking of the podcast feed, search Wade Keller in your podcast app to subscribe to our podcast if you have not done so yet. You'll see a red logo and a blue logo pop up when you search Wade Keller. The red logo are our post shows, which are after Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown. We have flashbacks and other cool stuff on that feed. The blue logo show is our more traditional podcast format, our weekly flagship. We cover a broad array of topics with a variety of co-hosts, such as Jason Powell on Tuesday. And Stephanie Chase, by the way, making a return next Tuesday. She's scheduled to co-host the flagship with me next Tuesday. A great rotation of different top shelf analysts that usually drops on Tuesday nights. But we also have interviews, pay-per-view previews, media Q&As, flashbacks. Now we're going back 15 years on our flashbacks on both the red and blue logo show to the early PWTorch live casts. Those are fun to listen back to. I have to make sure I don't just lose myself in listening to them when I'm getting them ready to repost and try to optimize the audio. It was a different audio era. I didn't have a nice microphone like this at the time. Man, or just the other one of them we just put up. It's like, should we excuse Vince Russo for not knowing who Shelton Benjamin was years after he started wrestling in WWE?
Wow.
Like that was a big topic a couple days ago on one of the shows. I mean, there's like
that's wild.
I know, like the stuff that comes up that we're talking about 15 years ago.
Oh my God.
It's really cool. Bischoff and Hogan were running TNA at that point. We're talking about that and AJ Styles going heel. And Jason Powell and Greg Parks and Pat McNeil and James Caldwell were freaking co-hosts with me at that time.
That's neat.
Yeah. So it's a really fun thing. I've been waiting because we didn't start. We started in December of 2009. So I've been waiting for a while for the 15 years anniversary to come up so we could start running them. Even 15 years ago, we put this up on January 6th on the Blue Logo show. James Caldwell and I were talking about CM Punk's push. Some interactions with Vince Russo and me. And Russo deleting some of my comments on, I think, a YouTube page of his or something. It's just weird stuff that I'd honestly forgotten about. And New Japan Wrestle, there's a bunch of conversations. So anyway, good reason. We're mixing in those 15 years ago shows on the red and blue logo show whenever we have an open slot. So that's not really, it's sort of a post show with the live callers. It's sort of a regular podcast because that morphed into our flagship. So it's sort of a hybrid red blue. So just check both feeds and subscribe. Another way you can be part of the show, getting back to the point here, is in the chat. We got the chat going right now. We watch it live as we broadcast. And if you say you're almost guaranteed to make the show relatively quickly if you do a super chat, but we keep an eye on everybody. We're not going to exclude you if you don't. Well, we might, but not like out of spite. And the other way you can participate is as a live caller, video or audio only. You can turn your camera off. You don't have to be on camera if you want to be on the show. We come from the Blog Talk Radio days with callers, and we're totally cool with audio. Blog Talk Radio, by the way, we moved to YouTube in part because they were shutting down, and they announced they're shutting down at the end of the month. They had a great run, but sort of time with some shifts in technology. So just want to give a shout out to Blog Talk Radio, even though we left them last year. As our platform to go live. They were good. There was a good place to be in 2010. And for years and years, we did great numbers and did great interviews with that live format. And live callers were a big driver of it. So Just a little salute to Blog Talk and a goodbye. Okay, what else was I going to say? Oh, the live caller thing. You can find the link to that in my TV reports at PWTorchVIP.com. There's a link there. And then also, if you're a Patreon supporter, it's exclusive for you also. It's not open to the general public. Being a video caller, we don't want to be overwhelmed. And so we reward our members with that. Patreon supporters also, just go to Patreon, look for the link, and you can join us. All right. I think that takes care of the main business. So let's get back to conversation about the show. And I want to, we got another super chat from CJ, generous super chat. Thank you. CJ goes, I've seen a few people online say because Bayley is now 35, she should just put people over now. She'd just lose all her matches. I disagree. She still has a few years left of being a great main eventer. What is your response to those people? I'm totally against those people, CJ. I don't think you reach a certain age and then you should do jobs. My issue with Bayley is I want to sense a little more that she's working to find a lane that fits a woman in her mid-30s who's a veteran. There are absolute assets that she has. She's good in the ring. She's good on the microphone. She's got a bond with fans. She's got a credible history with them. I mean, let's turn that into money. Let's turn that into a draw. So I'm curious what happens, CJ, with Tiffany next week and how Bayley is presented. Bayley might lose to Tiffany decisively, and that could be a spark for change. Like, I don't think losing is the end of the world if you use that loss as a spark to propel some sort of change in her character. If she loses and just hangs her head and leaves and then shows up on Raw and acts like nothing happened and it's just the same old Bayley, I think she probably will be used mostly to lose. But I don't think she should resign herself to that. And frankly, with a new influx of young talent coming up from NXT, inevitably within the next months and years, she's a good one to have around. She's a good hand. But if she just loses all the time, I mean, what value is she going to have actually giving a boost to somebody who needs it? Chris, your thoughts?
Yeah. When she won at WrestleMania, right, there was a sudden shift, if you remember. She had the moment where she declared against Io Sky, and that was like the moment where she turned. Suddenly she came to WrestleMania, she's being pushed, she's a face, and then she had a strange title run, I'd say, uneventful one. I wouldn't say it was bad, just not much happened, right? Kind of carried it, and it felt to me almost more like an honorific, right?
Yep.
And even when she came out at WrestleMania with the new music, there was the almost pseudo-Egyptian theme, if you remember. Right? That felt very bizarre, kind of cool, but it went nowhere, right? The music's still there, but they've gone away with that graphic. So it feels like they're looking, but maybe they're not looking hard enough, or she's not, right? So some evolution in that sense, because 35, that's not old, right? My God, I'm 39. That made me feel ancient when I saw that. I was like, oh God, yeah.
We put up I mentioned the NXT flashbacks, and it's fun looking back at our coverage of Bayley early in her career and on all the women who are big stars right now. NXT has been a place where these women wrestlers who have been around now for years, and it's like, I can't believe they're veterans. They're like older than this wrestler and that wrestler. They've been around that long, and you're almost looking at, like, there's people who look at this as the end stage of their career, and it just doesn't feel that long ago that they were the red hot thing, kind of reinvigorating women's wrestling in this country. But I think there's still a lot left with them.
Well, even thinking about Bayley coming, think about the matches that she could have with somebody like Stephanie Buccaire, right? Yeah. They could have some really hard, really stiff, sort of New Japan style matches where they work really snug with each other, and that could do something really cool for women's wrestling on the main roster, right? Something different. And I see that in Bayley in a way that could be really cool. So maybe we can see some of that come up.
Very good. Okay, let's throw up a comment here from Sadler V3. I've said this for a while. Bayley seems to be better in the Vince regime where things were more planned out and scripted. Maybe Bayley isn't as good, left to her own booking. I don't know. I don't know that she was that much better under Vince's scripting. I mean, the pandemic era where she was doing the ding dong thing, walking through the door, that felt fresh. But what worries me with her is when she comes out and sort of this half-hearted, ding dong, and she says it before she addresses the wrestlers in the ring, and then she does that kind of cartoon cackle thing.
Right.
And it's like it doesn't connect. It just feels like sort of remnants of something that once worked, and you're just going through the motions. And I think there's a sense that she's kind of struggling or not caring enough to come up with something new. But I don't think I've asked people backstage about her because it came across sometimes like she's kind of over it, just collecting a paycheck. And it sounds like she's still enthusiastic about her job. So maybe it's right. Maybe we need a little extra effort on the creative side. Give her some attention and move her to another stage of her career, but a more productive one. All right. Yeah. Okay. Let's shift to another topic. Paul Heyman spoke for Roman Reigns and said that Roman is going to enter the Royal Rumble, and he's going to win, and he's going to choose to face Cody, and he's going to take back his championship. What do you think of the segment, Chris? And then let's from there get into they're not really doing that match. So how are they going to not get to that match? Or do you think they are going to do that match?
So let's start first with Paul Heyman coming out and his role in the bit. And couple it with the strangeness of Cody's presentation at the Netflix Raw. If I was Cody Rhodes, right, I don't know if I would necessarily be pleased with the presentation of my character, having got a ringside seat while the big boss gives me props, and then to have a confrontation with the former champ's mouthpiece, right? There's something about that booking that felt a little strange to me. Now, I realize that's in character, but take it as a whole, it was just strange. I think Roman's going to lose, has to lose the Rumble in order for them not to get to that match, right? Because, so he's losing. He's got to.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of stories they can tell. I think, Heyman's promo with Cody solidified something that we thought might happen. And then the Reigns being in the Rumble, aiming for Cody, but something gets in his way. There are plenty of options for where things can go. By the way, we just heard we're going to probably hear from somebody who attended Raw. That's why the Raw logo is up. I'm going to pretend.
Nice.
In LA, just in Inglewood last Monday, he was there with his son. He's going to be joining us soon. So we're going to actually talk some Raw on Netflix. We didn't have an on-site correspondent Monday. We did like a 3-hour show or something on Monday night, talking about without an on-site correspondent. So, but it's cool. We're going to stray a little bit from a normally very strict format here, which is as talking about the show that we're airing live after. But I just think that was such a big deal, and I'd love to get an in-person perspective. So that's coming up. I want to go to an email a little earlier than normal because it totally fits what we're talking about here, Chris. And that is David Wolf, longtime listener, reader, VIP member. Hi, Wade, reading the tea leaves. This is David Wolf from Washington, D.C., by the way. Reading the tea leaves. Here's where I believe things are headed for WrestleMania 41. Roman Reigns wins the Rumble. Punk beats Gunther for the title, maybe at the Rumble. Cena wins the Elimination Chamber. So then Reigns is gunning for Cody, but Punk calls in his favor to Heyman, requesting that Reigns face Punk so that he can face Roman. And that's how they sway. Heyman sways Reigns to go after Punk because... Or I'm sorry, Reigns to go after Punk because Punk wants that match, and then we get Cody versus Cena, and then he's suggesting Gunther versus Goldberg, which they could do. There's certainly been some hints dropped on that with no title on the line, because I don't think they don't want Goldberg in a main event or a world title match. I mean, that's not the role that he should be in this era. But it would make sense then for Gunther to drop the belt. So what do you think of that? Favor called in, Punk gets a shot against Reigns, even though Punk is, so I want to track everything accurately. So go ahead and react to that, Chris.
So the idea would be Punk holding the world heavyweight belt,
right? From after beating Gunther,
Roman. Okay, Cody
and
facing Cena.
So it's weird. The thing about with David, and if he was calling us, I could ask him. But why is it a favor
Right.
to defend against Reigns. It's a part where that's what it's kind of stumbling. Like, where is the built-in motivation for Punk to say my favor is, unless he's saying, I know this guarantees me main eventing, and Punk wants to main event the final night. And that could be the favor. I could say, actually, now that I talk it through, Chris, Punk could say, Paul Heyman, I wanted to be world champ, and I am. But I want to headline WrestleMania night 2. And I know there's one opponent that that can make that happen. With all due respect to Cody and John Cena, I want a main event. I don't want to be in the middle of the card. Reigns is my opponent who can make that happen. So I throw that out there.
Okay, so I can see that as a possibility. The other thing is, it seems like Punk may have gotten his WrestleMania main event this past Monday, right? I mean, more people watched that than probably watched any WrestleMania. Not that is a consolation prize. I suppose I could see that as a possibility, although I'm still a little leery about Punk's favor being, hey, get Roman to be swayed over here, because that depends on Roman winning the Rumble anyway. So if Cena, Punk seems too smart to have a very conditional favor, right? So that would be my hang up with that. Although if that ended up being the card, I'd be pleased with that. I think a Gunther Goldberg match could be actually really entertaining if they rehearsed it and surprised the hell out of everybody by having Goldberg do more than just spamming his finishers. I mean, that could actually be kind of cool. Right? I'm talking myself into that, just like you talked yourself into Punk and Roman. So I could see that. Yeah, not sold, but I could see it.
Yeah. A few comments in the chat that I'd like to read here through after you're done. One from Sather Version 3. Cena wins a Rumble, challenges Gunther, and wins at WrestleMania 17. That's my prediction. Junaid says, why was Roman's character not there to share his Royal Rumble plans? It seems arrogant, disrespectful, not challenging Cody face-to-face, sending his wise man to do it instead. At least he's consistent. Is that an issue, by the way, that's going to manifest with Roman? That, he's a babyface, but boy, is he part-time and selective. And now, I'm never going to be sad to see a Paul Heyman promo, and I think the dynamic is there where Heyman, anytime you see Heyman, it's like, well, if the guy he's representing isn't here, I still get a Heyman promo. I have fans just absorb the reality that Roman's not an every week guy, and he's going to only show up every few weeks most of the time, or every few months sometimes.
I mean, I think that's it, right? Everybody, or not everybody, a lot of people are smart enough to realize, one, I think after the leukemia bit, he was able to reorganize and reorient his priorities, especially with his contract. And so he does what he wants and spends time with his family, and that's life, right? I mean, that's the only Roman Reigns I've ever known. Right? Yep. I wasn't there for Big Dog, so it's like, oh, okay. I still think having him call Cody to the ring was too much of a slight, and maybe that's what they were going for. Yeah. And I hope they were going for that rather than it just simply being an oversight, which wouldn't feel consistent with the booking lately.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the reality is Roman is currently popular. They're not going to turn him heel anytime soon, I don't think. Heyman is in an interesting role that's more of a wise man manipulator who's got friends and allegiances, and enemies. But he can, there's a respect with Cody, obviously, a leeriness on Cody's part that felt appropriate. Cody was great tonight, and his body language has really got that down. He knows his character as well as anybody. And obviously CM Punk is that friendship and that deal is there, and then Roman, and he's got enough respect from Solo to be able to say, well, I mean, Solo did almost kill him, smashing him through a table. So I mean, people have pointed out there's a little bit of a I don't know why is Heyman okay, but he's good at acting trepidatious and scared. So Ken Arnold has a question that kind of attaches this. Should Jacob Fatu be Roman's opponent? I definitely feel it'd be a big time WrestleMania match. I honestly would have Fatu pin Reigns clean. So That's and by the way, someone else said this standard deviation said this year's WrestleMania main events are the least predictable in recent memory for me, and I've been saying that on podcasts that I haven't put a ton of thought into like having a working theory on what the WrestleMania main events are going to be, because we had to get past Netflix, and I think we have to get into the Rumble build to get a sense of it. Yeah. I don't even know if they for sure know. Like, I mean, they could have 2 or 3 plans, and then Dwayne Johnson could make a phone call to Ari Emanuel or Nick Khan and just go, "Oh, I want it in again," and they blow things up again. I mean, that would be so oblivious of him. But
yeah, but I wouldn't put it past him with what I've seen lately. If I, you know, yeah. Does the world need more Moana? Like, no, we don't. So I'm with them. It does feel unpredictable. I mean, the chatter that I'm hearing and reading is Cody Cena is the plan, and it seems like that's something Cody has requested or Cody's camp. I think that'd be cool, but if The Rock blows it up, The Rock's going to blow it up. You know, he's not just on the board of directors; he's a massive part owner, right?
Yeah,
like, he's in for life.
Yeah. And I think too, this is a season where the writers working for the editors at the SEO driven sites are going to put things out there that this is what's being said. There is a history of reporters being completely wrong, but thinking what's logical. So I'm going to act like I have a good source on this, when the truth is WWE's keeping it close to their vest, and in some cases they haven't decided yet. So I'm not directly discrediting reports, but I'm saying to people, don't consider reading SEO-driven clickbait headlines that are based on what somebody said in a context with a bunch of hedging. There's a history of being wrong when it comes to my sources tell me this, but it could change, and they always say it could change, and 3 out of 4 times it does.
Right.
Keep it in perspective. It isn't a spoiler. You don't know. Enjoy the ride. That said, I fully expect a Cody Cena match at some point in Cena's retirement year. What
do you want to see? What do you hope to build towards? Or are you ready to say that yet?
I'm not ready to say it. I think there's and the reason I say this, I don't think that any of these options people are floating are bad. I like Jacob Fatu against Roman. I think you can tell this is the thing. They have so many great parts to work with. Punk, Gunther, Cena, Reigns, Jacob Fatu, whoever I've left off. Like, there's a real good mix of top tier talent. So if Roman takes on Fatu, or Roman takes on even Cody in a rematch, if Roman takes on Cena, I think they can make that work. Like, I think there's enough possibilities. I have faith in Paul Levesque, and then the wrestlers involved, and the ones with influence, and Paul Heyman obviously has, is a respected voice in the company. I just have faith whatever they choose is going to be good. So I'm not like a fan going, this is a match I want because it's my favorite wrestler. I'm honestly 35 years past having a favorite wrestler. I'm a journalist. I cover this. I just want to see what happens and hope it's fascinating, and hope that it's successful and a well-told story. And I have confidence that that's going to happen here. I don't think Rock's going to screw around this year. I think he knows he messed with his reputation, and I think Monday was sort of the Rock rehabilitation appearance. Yeah. Look, that whole heel persona that I created, it was sort of tongue in cheek. It was inaudible. I love you. You know I'm a good guy. Like, that's what that was. So,
and what sucks is the story that came up between him and Cody was so powerful, right? Going back to that bus scene, in the rain, and it felt like that work got thrown away to a certain extent, and that didn't sit well with me. Going back to story, right? What story do you think they were trying to tell with Cody abandoning his buddy mid-match, right?
Yeah. Getting back to tonight instead of big picture WrestleMania. That's
yeah.
It's really interesting because because Jimmy's not a main event guy, but he's an absolute part of the main event mix, and so Jimmy can be a fulcrum, a pivot point, an influencer in how things go, even if it's if it's just someone has to talk him down from a ledge or being upset. I don't know that they're going to make a ton out of it, but I don't know that they're not. Anytime a wrestler abandons his partner in the middle of a match and that partner loses, but the thing is so I could imagine people looking at Cody going, what's Cody doing? Stay focused. A match counts, winning counts. But Kevin Owens is a huge agitator. There's a
Right.
big personal issue. Yeah, they're building up a singles match for the Rumble. And so, there's sort of just the utilitarian aspect of doing this. So you want to make sure that people think Cody, you want fans to realize Cody's that his biggest focus right now is KO, not even this match that he asked for.
Yeah.
But if I'm Jimmy, I mean, from a storyline standpoint, Chris, if I'm Jimmy, I'm not happy with him.
Right.
And it would feel weird for it not to be brought up. But they're not turning Cody heel. I mean, they're not. They don't even want anyone to think of him that way. So I don't know. Maybe it's just like sort of sloppy booking, where they're like, oh, we want to get across how obsessed Cody is with KO, and then that'll quote protect Jimmy because he lost because it's 2-on-1. So they're sort of protecting him. But Jimmy, and maybe Jimmy will understand. Maybe Jimmy next, Cody be like, sorry, man, I shouldn't have lost my focus. And Jimmy will pat him on the chest and go, yeet, man, it's okay. You got to take care of business. I did my best. I'm sorry I let you down by losing. And it just goes poof. It's nothing.
Yeah, they're good. It was interesting because he didn't even do the look back, right? There was no sense of, hey, if I leave, Jimmy's going to get the crap kicked out of him. He was just like, oh, KO's here, got to roll, just went into revenge mode. So maybe that's just me being too hypercritical. I still had a blast, still loved it. So
yeah. Ken Arnold on our conversation says, I could see Jimmy demanding a match with Kevin Owens because he cost him and Cody a chance for a win. Although I'm sure he's disappointed in Cody for getting distracted, he'll forgive him, but with some hesitation. And I think that's the most likely scenario, which is, hey, Cody, you had to stop this guy who's going to interfere against us and cost us to lose. And unfortunately, the brawl, you weren't able to take care of him and get back to the ring in time. And I could see just Jimmy going, it was my fault. I should have held up my end of the bargain more. Not that people would blame him, but they might think, oh, that's Jimmy being a good guy. So people in the chat going, we're talking about main eventers in the mix, Drew McIntyre too. I mean, Goodfella 1422 says, I forgot about Drew too. He's been brilliant. When I said I know I'm like rattling off names and I'm forgetting people, I don't know what Drew does, but I know that he's making his case that he wants a big match, and I don't think he wants whatever's left over after everybody else is prioritized. And I don't know what that match is. I don't know that he's ultimately going to be a top priority this year, but I also think they're going to not want to come across to fans that he's not a top priority because he's had a great last year.
Yeah. The bit that he did with Cody last week was really good. And I thought the energy was there. There was the recipe for something good. Like you, I don't think that's what they're going to lean into, not even in sort of a mini feud. But if they did, I think that could be cool. They could do some magic. The work on the microphone they could do together, I think could be really cool.
Yep. JC Scooby just goes, the Rumble is always good when you didn't know who was going to win. Let's see. Oh, another name added to the mix in terms of top names. I don't think it's his year yet, but if there's a couple injuries or something like that, Braun Breaker could win the Rumble and face Gunther would be a co-main event. I think it's too soon. I don't think they're I don't think Braun's on a track quite that quick. But Braun's had 2024 was a great breakout year for him. And, break glass in case of emergency, if they needed that, I mean, I think he could. I've been that impressed with him, but I don't think we're there. I don't think we're there yet.
And other than double tag champions, has there been a double champ since Levesque's been booking?
Oh, I don't think so.
Yeah.
And they're not going to want him to lose before they could do a triple threat thing, where he doesn't lose, but that's their cop out. JC Scooby says, I don't want to see Cena wrestle for a title at WrestleMania. I don't think he's alone. I think there's a lot of people like that. Ken Arnold adds, I think Paul Levesque and crew have a firm idea what undercard matches are, but the two men's world titles and two women's world titles are not quite final yet. I don't think you can have a final undercard until you know what your main events are going to be. I mean, when I say I'm not sure that they're sure, I lean strongly that they know where they're going and they have an endpoint. But I'm not ruling out that they're not kind of listening to the crowd and kind of getting a sense of things and saying, God, we've got, it's like you're driving to have dinner and you're debating in the car which two restaurants to go to. They're both going to be good. It's like, well, we're just there a month ago, but it sounds better, but I want to try something new. Like they might be having those internal discussions and keeping their options open. I'm not 100% ruling that out in the lay of the land that we have now, Chris. I just think it seems plausible.
I mean, that's sort of an embarrassment of riches when you don't know which matches you're going to put together, but you know basically any one of them could be a big money match. Like, yeah,
Yep.
you're riding pretty good.
Yep. Yep. Very true. People bringing up LA Knight. He shoved Jacob Fatu out of the arena.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know what the arc is for this story, how long it lasts. But obviously, he paid a price. It was sort of their escape hatch from a finish in the Shinsuke Night match. Did you like that? And do you like Jacob Fatu against LA Knight? I mean, it seems like they're setting that up at least short term.
I think, well, yeah, I don't mind the story. When I was watching their interactions, throwing him out, right, you know, it was coming back. I don't I don't see them as having awesome ring chemistry, if I'm being honest. Right, their
Yeah.
styles don't they wouldn't play together well, in my opinion. Now, I'd love to be proven wrong, but that's also a match where I think you've got to have Jacob Fatu win, or it's going to be another disqualification or something like that. You can't have either man lose cleanly. So I guess the answer is no. I'm not particularly looking forward to that pairing up if that's where they go. I don't know.
Uh,
How about you?
um, yeah, not yet.
Mhm. Yeah.
I'd say just not yet.
Yeah.
But comment here is from Goodfella 1422. I think Braun is the only up and comer you could get away with winning the Rumble. Like
Yeah.
could
Yeah.
you know? Like I think if there was going to be a surprise winner and people are like, wait, Cena
Yeah.
didn't win, Reigns didn't win. Like you're looking around at all these big names who didn't win, and Braun is
Right.
standing tall. There'd be a lot of people disappointed their guy didn't win, but they'd be like, holy.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
What the? This is This is big. Oh my God! They're strapping a rocket to him, and he's enough
Yeah.
of a tweener where you wouldn't know who he's going after. So again, I don't think that's a plan. I think it's too soon. I don't think I just but it's a testament to Braun that I
Yeah.
read that comment and I'm kind of nodding along, going, I think they could almost get away with that. Almost.
Yeah. Especially if it was something like almost like a path of destruction moment, right? Where we know what levels he can go to, and then he goes even further, you know, and then that's the man that would face down Jacob Fatu, right? That would make good on what they promised months ago. So I could see that. Could be cool. Don't think it will happen, but that could be.
Yeah, so LA Knight is not going to main event WrestleMania. There's some people who are like really high on him, but I mean, it's just he's not. He's a good, solid top of the second tier player who can visit the top tier. LA Knight against Jacob Fatu, they're setting up. It's probably a short term. I don't think they're going to be like having a blow off match at WrestleMania.
Right.
Jacob Fatu against Roman Reigns feels like the high end of what people who have been real fans of Jacob Fatu's work in WWE and prior would be hoping for. And now that, Solo's going to be on SmackDown next week, they advertise. So, we'll see. I'm curious, does Solo say, in so many words, I lost to Roman. I am now going to present to you Jacob Fatu as my top weapon. He's the weapon I know that can get the new bloodline back in the prestige and whatever. So, kind of pivot away from being the main guy. I don't think Solo's been a failure, but I don't think he's been a guy where you're like, I can't wait to see his next top feud and top match. So, but there's some cachet, some equity with a bloodline. So you could propel Jacob Fatu. I love when they film Jacob Fatu walking backstage, Chris, and just just yelling like he just can't shut up. Like I got thoughts. I'm going to express them when I see a camera, and I'm going to talk the whole way to the ring. They're not protecting him in the ring in the sense that he's not just dominating and winning everything. They're utilizing him in a way where he's selling, taking bumps, which is good because you can end up pretty one-dimensional if you just get treated like super dominant. But I'm not getting signals yet that they're like committed to making him a WrestleMania main eventer this year either. I think that feels a little bit more SummerSlam-esque. Needs a little more time, and maybe it's not WrestleMania worthy. What do you think?
I don't think it'd be WrestleMania this year. We haven't really gotten to know him enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we are seeing shades of it coming out. We see the complexity that's there, but the general audience doesn't really know him. So WrestleMania, big match, no. Singles match, no. Maybe in some kind of tag situation. but I think he's inevitably going to get there. And I think when we see the promos that he does, the walking backstage promos, if people haven't had a chance to see his most famous MLW promo, right, King Kong versus Godzilla, Google that one. He's got an authenticity about the way he presents himself that is undeniably huge. And you saw it tonight, right?
Yeah.
This big, I don't want to use monster because I'm becoming a little uncomfortable with Wade Barrett's usage of monster and savage. But there's like a comic book villain character quality that's not cartoony, that is just gritty and real. So yeah, I'm jazzed by it.
Just a couple of comments in the chat, then we'll go to Jose, our Raw Netflix correspondent. BJF says it's crazy how stacked Raw and SmackDown is on the men's side, and you have Trick Williams and Obi Femi waiting in the wings to be called up, both top future stars, but can't see how they would fit in. Yeah, they're not going to fast track those two. I mean, you'd have to have like a bus. I would hate to say like a bus crash with 6 major injuries. I mean, that's not going to happen. Darrell Freeman says tonight seems like the start of the build of Jacob Fatu as a main eventer and his rise to the top of the card. But Sadler version 3 says too soon for Jacob to main event WrestleMania. Yeah. He'll get there in the future though, and that's where I am. Ken Arnold adds Braun Breaker versus Jacob Fatu at WrestleMania or SummerSlam in 2026 or 2027 would be tremendous. Thing is, sometimes people are ready. Like, I use NBA analogies a lot. There's players who are ready to play starter minutes or fifth, sixth man minutes, or sixth, seventh man minutes, I should say. But sorry, you're on a loaded team. Right. And there's players who are more savvy, play better defense. They're more trustworthy to not turn over the ball, or they're coaches' favorites, or they're paid a lot and they don't want to make the GM look bad, or they're trying to give them minutes so they can be traded and have trade value because they get their point. All kinds of reasons. Sometimes people who are ready don't get the spotlight because you have too many people in front of you. Right. That's a good problem to have, but that's absolutely the case. You could strip away 5 top guys in WWE right now, and with the time that they have the next 4 months, they could put a good WrestleMania card together. Good one. Not a great one, but a good one, even with 5 of your top men stars gone. I mean, that's a nice position to be in.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. So let's see if there's anything else I want to... Oh, just one more. Ken Arnold says, Braun's a top 2026 Rumble candidate. Too bad it'll be in Saudi Arabia, or maybe Elimination Chamber 2026 is when he's the number one contender. So, looking ahead, we got a long way to go and plenty of time to make it work.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift to a new topic here, Chris. We've got Jose joining us as a caller who attended the historically significant first Raw ever on Netflix, the first pro wrestling show at Intuit Arena. Jose, thanks for joining us. Are you ready to talk with us about your experience on Monday?
Yeah, can you hear me all right, Wade?
Yeah, you sound really good, Jose. Thank you.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Excellent. So, I appreciate you taking time. I know it's a few days after the fact, but I'll just start with this. What's going to be your top memory from that show? Like the number one thing that you remember that stands out about being in the building for that experience?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, I went, it was a bit of a birthday present for my son who's turning 13 here on Sunday. So we went, and just happened where I got seats was right where Travis Scott and Jey Uso came in through the crowd. We were literally 2 feet away from them. Nice. So for my son, he's into rap. He knows who Travis Scott is, obviously. That was probably his most memorable. So for me, it'll probably, it's the memories that he gets to keep. So that would probably be the most memorable. To go with that, though, on a wrestling related note, just how over Jey Uso was. I mean, I think besides The Rock and John Cena, maybe he biggest pop in the building. Everybody is on their feet doing his entrance. He's just the most popular guy. So that will stick with me too. And yeah, just I mean, Intuit, I've never been there before. It was a great place for wrestling. The seats were great. The atmosphere, they have lights all the lights you could see were built in on the seats. Yeah. So as everybody's entrance, that was coordinated. That was really cool. So, I mean, it was just a great viewing experience for, how expensive some of these things can be.
Do they have phone chargers attached to every seat back?
Yes.
Yeah. I know. That's pretty wild. I don't want to forget to talk about this, and we have a request already from BJF in the chat. I want Jose's thoughts about the Hogan reaction and how the crowd reacted around him. Tell us what that was like. The ebb and flow. Was it instant booze? Was it after his music stopped? Did it get worse when Hogan kept talking? Did it get better when he said you've always stuck with me through ups and downs? Talk about that experience.
Yeah, so that was a little surprising. As we were walking in, there was actually a gentleman. He was pretty hype about the whole thing, and then he turned to me as we were going in the building. He's like, "When Hogan comes out, we're booing." That was his actual comment to me, and I was like, "Oh, Hogan's gonna be at this thing." I didn't know. I kind of got like more wind that he would be because I was looking at the mat and it had the advertisements, and I couldn't place one of the logos. And somebody sitting next to me was like, "Oh, that's Hogan's beer," which I guess that's what he came out to say, was pretty much just a big ad for his beer. But yeah, it was pretty much instantaneously, and it kind of just got louder the more he talked, and it sounded like the arena wanted to like boo him into like, "Hey, just go away." That was pretty surprising, I think, to some extent. Like I think the stuff that happened with him, like that, all that stuff was kind of a while ago. I think that's what maybe WWE was hoping, that had been long enough that people
Hogan
wouldn't
was,
be
yeah.
mad. But yeah, it was loud, and it was the biggest booze of the entire night. So
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I'm sure it was not. I don't think Hogan can be humbled, but I'm sure it was shattered something inside of him.
Yeah.
That it was that bad. That had to be embarrassing. But all he had to do was a better job apologizing for vile racist things he said to his son on what he thought would be forever private phone calls, and he couldn't do that.
Right.
So I'm sure it's other things. I mean, he's cheesy '80s gimmick, pandering to the fans and pitching beer and being carny, and it's just not in step with what fans expect from WWE these days. That said, had he not made some mistakes, I think people would embrace the '80s. He's still there. It's like, hey, we got to pay respects to him. But he's undone that. He's lost his goodwill with fans, and that was evident, at least in that building, and it hasn't been great in other places either. We have a question in the chat for the reaction to Penta. There was, let me find the thing here. Goodfellas said, saw a couple people talking about the Penta graphic showing up, and the crowd reacted well to it.
yeah, I think, obviously it's LA. There's a pretty large Hispanic population here that are probably a little bit more plugged into who Penta is than maybe other places. But yeah, there was a reaction. I think there was still some murmuring in the crowd that I don't know if that came up before the New Day came out and said, "Oh, we're not having a match because LA sucks," or whatever. It seemed like that's where they were going, that he was going to team with Ray at some point. That wasn't announced to anybody. It was news to me once that happened. But mostly everybody had like it's Penta. Like there was a couple people saying, "Oh, Cero Miedo," and the chant that goes with him is a little bit. But yeah, it was a positive reaction. I think it seemed like people in the crowd knew who that was.
Chris, chime in with a question for Jose.
So the sense that I got watching it was that it was very much more of a spectacle than your typical Raw. Did you get the sense that that kind of spectacle was going to be carried forward, or did you get the sense that this was primarily just for this kickoff?
I think the way that it was talked about, I don't know if it was just WWE or like people in the space talking about it. It's going to be like a small WrestleMania type of night like that. So or some,
Right.
in that area of like grandeur was kind of hyped it up to be that. But yeah, it definitely seemed like, especially things like Undertaker kind of just popping in during the Rhea Ripley segment, kind of just there and then leaving, kind of definitely seemed like one of those WrestleMania type of, we just got to get these legends out there.
Yeah.
It didn't seem like that was probably something they're going to continue on Netflix every night. I did see the card that they have for tomorrow, next Monday, and it looks like pretty positive. One thing I did take away is that it seemed like all the good guys' faces, however, won pretty much, like all the people that people would want to see win, which I think maybe was done intentionally because, it's easier to get people who are new to invest in the good guys, right? So I think, I don't know if that was intentional. It seemed to me that, kind of coincidental maybe that they all won. But it seemed like it was a one night, like there's a big event, and then maybe Raw will just be Raw as it was before going forward.
Tell me the relative reaction for Cena, Triple H for that matter, and The Rock compared to Rhea Ripley, CM Punk, Roman Reigns, the contemporary wrestlers. I assume a lot of people, following up on Chris's question, were not there to watch cameras pointed at celebrities in the front row. or to listen to people talk about thank you for spending more money than anyone ever has collectively on a wrestling event in an arena. Thank you for making us rich. And here's a Netflix executive that nobody watching cares about, but we're really excited to give him his moment of in the spotlight. So I'm loading the question up, but like, how did the crowd react to the current top stars? Because I mentioned this in the flagship with Jason on Tuesday. My sort of day 2 thoughts on Raw was, okay, I'm processing a lot that happened, and I know it was a special show. Kind of go to Chris said. I mean, clearly that's not going to be the format every week because they're not going to have Rock and Hogan and Cena cutting welcome back or welcome to Netflix promos. They've got to shift to something more basic with what they do week to week. But how did the crowd react to it for this one night spectacle of sorts?
Yeah, I think for the spectacle and I mean, with it being especially Cena's first day, I mean, he got a lot of there was barely any like Cena sucks chants. There was mostly thank you Cena. Everybody was just happy to see Cena since it's his kickoff, farewell tour thing. With The Rock, it's always The Rock. When The Rock's music hits, it kind of always, everybody gets excited. I think there was a little bit of a dying down, especially after Roman Reigns' match, that nothing happened. Everybody was kind of expecting something besides him just being like, oh, okay, cool. Like, I don't know if you guys also got it on TV. There was these like cell phone packages of The Rock just like going around. Okay, you guys got those too.
Yeah, on
his
Instagram, yeah.
Yeah, so I think everybody was just like, wait, that's like a complete 180 from The Rock. But I mean, everybody always pops for The Rock when he comes out. I pop every time I hear Triple H do his thing, even though it's the same thing. Are you ready? Like, it's hard not to get excited. It's cool. I mean, but yeah, so I mean, they had obviously the loudest. I think Rhea was pretty good. Roman pretty good. Jay, like I said, was the loudest of the contemporary. But yeah, I mean, they got, everybody was excited. Rhea was probably the one whose merch I saw the most, and like a lot of girls and like just a lot of merch for her, t-shirts all over the place for her. So they were pretty excited to see her win. I think. I mean, I think most people were expecting it, but yeah, I'd say it was maybe because they hadn't seen those stars in that since quite a while. The Rock, Cena hadn't been on TV or since a while. I think people in the arena popped for it, but yeah, I mean, there was not much substance. It was just, like you said, it was like a hey, thanks for making all this money for us type of thing.
Have you how would you compare the Rhea Ripley pop to Jey Uso? You talked about Rhea having the most merch, but how did her pop compare to Jey? Because those are the ones we hear most often, even more than like Roman and Cody, which is kind of stunning in a way. But how did the pop for Rhea compare to Jey?
I guess if you were going to say a Jey was like a 9 or 9.5, hers would be like a good solid like 8 or just below there. So a decent like decibel noise, you could tell there was a difference. But yeah, she was, of all the women, there wasn't very many, but like of all the women, she was the loudest, and she was probably second loudest outside of like the legends, I would say. Yeah, I would put her above Roman. CM Punk, though, it was a little weird. I don't know if it was all commercials, but like Seth Rollins' entrance lasted like, I don't know, 10 minutes. It was like the longest. It was so long that I think by the time CM Punk came out, the crowd was like, all right, like they were ready for the match. But after when CM Punk won, it was pretty loud. But yeah, she was probably second, right behind Jey.
So I want to circle back because I want to make sure I get an answer on this, and maybe I missed it in the context. Did it seem like the fans were most excited to see the current stars, or did the novelty of Cena, Rock, Hunter, Hogan, Undertaker, less so obviously, did that seem to be more special to the fans? I genuinely am curious, like, because I could imagine some people going, yeah, Cena would like you, would cheer you, but come on, well, let's get to Rhea, let's get to Punk, let's get to Seth, let's get to so give me an assessment of those two things comparing again.
Yeah, I would say the only star that like current that was comparable would be Jey. Everybody else, I think the legends people were more excited to see them. Not like a crazy split, like it was quiet or anything during the main stars, but I think definitely the novelty of seeing Cena, when the Undertaker's gong goes off, that whole thing is different than when Roman's music hit or CM Punk's or Seth's for that matter.
One more quick one, and then I'll throw to you, Chris. Did you ever think the pace of the show wasn't what you or your son or some other fans were looking for. There was a lot, like 10-minute ring entrance, like long in-ring promos, long stretches between matches, not that much minute for minute in-ring wrestling. Did that matter? Because, like, let's be honest, you got to see The Rock, you got to be there for a historic moment for Hulk Hogan, a humiliation of him, John Cena making his first long form promo back. I mean, there's a lot. Triple H, like you said. So yeah, just like, did the show drag for you at all? Even because it was such an unconventional WWE event compared to what everyone else attending has experienced at other shows.
Let's see. No, I think the two parts that maybe dragged a bit were Cena's promo was pretty long, and that Seth Rollins, like, I think everybody was just really expecting the Seth Rollins CM Punk to be like, if you're there for wrestling, that's where you're gonna get like good, actual wrestling, if you want to call it that, compared to like, the other matches had a lot of interference and stuff. So I think a lot of people during that were getting angsty, like, Seth kept going around trying to hype up the crowd, like, yeah, like do the whoa and burn it down. But I think by the fifth time, everybody was like, can we at least turn the music off? I don't know. I think everybody's kind of like, why is this going on so long? I think those are the biggest points, especially because, like you said, there wasn't a ton of actual in-ring wrestling. So people were just really wanting to see that match. I think those were the 2 points. But everything else seemed pretty, I mean, you could tell when they were in commercial, you could tell when, holds or gets thrown out of the ring and nothing's happening for, but that's kind of more standard from being at wrestling shows that I remember. But I would say those were the 2 points where it was like, all right, can we, let's move it along.
Go ahead, Chris. You have something else to say? Yeah.
Jose, were there any dark matches? Or was it just the 4 that we saw on TV?
That's it. Before the ring was covered, I don't know if they showed it to you guys, the big
the
carpet that said Netflix on it, and then it dropped and Triple H was in there. But nothing before and nothing after.
So that's what strikes me when they say they had the biggest arena gate in WWE history on 4 wrestling matches, right? That's when they're doing something right to take our money. And hey, I've paid high ticket prices, so I'd be one of them. But yeah, I mean, I'm also a little jealous. I think I would have loved to be there, as Wade said, for the historic humiliation of our once great former icon.
Yeah, he had it coming. Jose, talk about your son and what he thought of this. And had he been to shows before?
Yeah, so we were really into wrestling. What was it? When did they go to Fox? Was that 2019?
Yeah, late 2019.
Yeah, so before then, so like 2018, 2019, a little bit during the pandemic, he was really into it. Then we took a break until last year, like around WrestleMania, during the whole Cody story and stuff. But so he was getting back into it. So he was really excited. He to see all the people. Like I said, for him, the highlight was definitely Travis Scott coming out right there, because that was also unexpected. But he had fun. He was like, wait. First, he didn't really know too much about Hogan, but he kind of recognized him, and then he was like somewhat surprised about the booing. So later on the drive home, I explained like, well, he did not some great things, got caught saying pretty horrible things. So I think that's pretty much why he got booed, because I think he was surprised because he's supposed to be a good guy, as people cheer for. So, but he enjoyed it a lot. It was a lot of fun. The last time we went to a Raw, he was younger, so it was harder for him to sit for 3 hours. This time there was no problem whatsoever. It was pretty entertaining for him. So
nice.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chris. You want to ask Jose anything else?
Yeah, Jose. So I've got a 12-year-old son who started loving Seth Rollins, but for whom Jey Uso has become his top. What is it, man? Have you talked to your son about just what it is about Jey Uso that he finds so compelling? Because my son can't articulate it, but he loves him. Yeah.
I think it's a bit of a coolness factor, right? He's also got kind of, I mean, they picked Jey Uso in his entrance to go with Travis Scott, not anybody else's. It's like pop culture-y. He's like, that's one thing I was thinking about too, is like there isn't and this is kind of side tangent to your point, but like for some of the female wrestlers entrances, they don't have as much of like a bop or like something to get into. Like a lot of the male wrestlers, especially Jay and it's simple, right? You just put your hands up,
Yeah.
put your hands down, and say yeet, yeet. Like it's simple, but it's catchy. The music goes very well. Yes, I think it's all of that. It's like very pop culture, very like it's cool. Like a lot of times, I think
Yeah.
wrestling maybe kind of still has a little bit of a stigma, like, oh, it's what you're into wrestling, you're like a teenager, like that. But like Jey Uso's like, no, like look at Jay, like he's cool, like he's um it's fun. It's I think that's what it is.
Yeah, there is a fun, jovial, just sort of innocent joy of performance. I haven't talked about that as much. Like way back when Chad Gable and Jason Jordan were NXT, I said one of the biggest things they have going for them that stood out, almost nobody else in wrestling had at the time, was a joy of performance.
Yeah.
Like so many wrestlers look like and some it fit their character, but like it's a job. I show up, I do my thing, and they just seem like they were like living a dream. And I think with Jay, he's just living a dream. There's a joy of performance, and obviously coming through the crowd is something, but it's different than when the Shield did it. It's different than when Moxley does it. It's a guy who just is a man of the people. And he was, I think you can't separate. I mean, people like him who didn't follow all the Bloodline storyline, but there's something about the journey he took and the stance he took and how he came out of it that people go, hey, he survived a lot of muck, a lot of infighting, and he's his own guy now.
Yeah, I think there's something about he transcends culture too. I mean, yeah, I'm living in a small town, North Carolina, right? And my son's watching this guy, and it's like, that's a cool guy, So he's drawing in from a variety of cultural expressions that I think is awesome.
Yeah. Was there a celebrity who got a biggest pop, Jose, when they appeared on camera? BJF says Macaulay Culkin got a massive pop.
Yes, yeah, that was a lot of those people, I could tell they were not the target audience for my son's age, because he was like, who's that? Who's that? Who's that? Besides like a couple of the rappers, I had to explain to him. But yeah, I think Macaulay Culkin definitely, and then Ashton Kutcher got a decent one. I think he's decently liked. But yeah, those were the two that stuck out.
Junaid in the chat wants to know, Jose, what did you think of the crowd erupting in applause when Rock announced it was a record gate, which required making the fans pay more than any fans ever collectively have at an arena show? How'd you feel about it, and did you kind of notice the crowd popping for that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the crowd didn't psychologically think about like, oh, okay, so we're the record because we paid more than anybody else. It was more like, oh, we're part of a record. Woo! Yeah. Like we're made history. So, I didn't think about it that way, even though I know how much I paid for my tickets. But, afterwards I was like, oh yeah, that's because they, it's not like this arena is bigger than some other arena. It's not bigger than Staples or some of the other places. So,
yeah. What was the highlight of the arena, like itself, the facility? I've watched YouTube videos on it. I know it is the state of the art, over the top, like heavily praised arena. Was there anything negative about it, and what stood out as memorable about that experience being in that building compared to anything else like Staples?
Yeah, I mean, I've been to SoFi, which is a new, NFL stadium, and when you walk into SoFi, it looks new from the outside, but inside it doesn't seem very new. Besides, like the giant 360 screen, like the seats, it's all kind of like other arenas I've been to. That one, as soon as we got to the seats, you could tell that it was brand new. The power, being able to charge your phone, the LED lights in it, the way it was seated, and the staff too was actually really good, which is kind of weird. Everybody was very helpful directing. It was very well staffed and I don't know if overly staffed, but well staffed.
Yeah.
So to help people, so you could tell it was a brand new arena that's been built, and it started this year, and that was the nicest part. It looked like all the seats, even if you were higher or lower, were like nicer, kind of cushiony seats compared to some other places where you only get nice seats if you play more.
Is it true that if you tell Siri you want a hot dog, it just drops in your lap from a drone within 20 seconds?
No, but there was a drone that kept flying around. I don't know what they're using that for, but that was weird to have. There was a drone constantly flying around, but
I saw something on the YouTube video. They use a drone on TV like to show the crowd and stuff, which is cool. I know I saw something on YouTube about like the concessions though, and how like crazy, like you just walk up and you take what you want, and you like a pizza, you just take and walk away. And they know to charge your phone. Like it's just
one of those.
like there's no lines. You literally just walk up and go, oh, I want this soda and I want the nachos. You just pick them up and walk away, and people are all confused, like, really? And it's like, yeah, you check your credit card. We just charge you. It's like magic. It's crazy.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So with that they actually didn't have that feature when we went.
Okay.
Or where we
maybe
were
it's for
sitting,
season ticket holders more or something for basketball.
Yeah, but they did have it coming in. So if you scanned your face, kind of like to unlock
That's
your
it.
phone type of scanning face.
Yep.
You walked up. Me and my son walked up. We didn't have the tickets out, and they were like, "You're good to go," and they just gave us a thumbs up, and we just walked in. So
Wow.
yeah, I think that's part of what's supposed to work with the concessions. But when I went to the guy and asked them, they're like, "Oh, we're not doing that today. You have to just pay normal with your card." But yeah, I think that's how it works. It's like facial recognition, which is pretty crazy.
It's cool now, but there's going to be a time in our lives where we deeply regret fingerprinting our phone and giving our face away to the government. But enjoy life while you can until we're in a fascist state that knows everything we say and do, and our TVs are listening to us. I've got a relative who won't have a smart device in his house. He's like, I'm going to be the one person surviving the government overtaking everything.
Dude, he's probably right.
I used to, 100%. 8 years ago, I said he was crazy. I don't think he's crazy anymore. I think he was. I mean, I literally laughed at him. Like, really, you think the government's going to care? And it's like, well, we've been, kind of. Now I think we're kind of whatever. Yeah. We'll see.
Yeah.
America voted, and now, yeah. So there's another question someone wants to know how much you paid for your tickets. You don't have to share that, Jose, but if you're willing to, we'll take it.
Yeah, I was in the 200 section, so it's like kind of, I like sitting there, especially at wrestling shows, because if you're too far back on the floor, well, it's expensive, but then you can't really see. So I like when the stands first start kind of rising. We were about like row 6, and before the awful fees, they were about like $400 a piece, $450.
Yeah, and after fees, $3,700.
Yes,
$3,700. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it was Rude Dog who asked that, by the way. So he is rude. That was rude of you. Ask Jose how much his tickets were.
$450 plus his face.
Yes. Yeah, there comes a point you just throw your hands up and go, all right, whatever. I'll take convenience over freedom. No, I won't. But I mean, what are we gonna do? We laugh now. Exactly. Rude Dog says, ouch. Sorry, Rude Dog. I'm having fun. BJF wanted to know, Jose, were there any wrestlers you wanted to see who were not there, whether current wrestlers or legends, and same about your son?
Yeah, I mean, we were pretty hyped for Penta. They'd been, posting the thing, and then the whole thing with Ray. So it was that was a little bit, a downer. I was hoping to. I mean, maybe I'm one of the only people, but like I was hoping some of the people that were advertised were at least like cut a promo and not just be shown in the crowd. Like I would have liked to hear something from Logan Paul. I mean, maybe I'm like the minority there, but like some of these people, like even if it was something recorded, I don't know, something more than just like here they are in the crowd. Okay, at least Cody, had the run in with Kevin Owens. At least they did that. But I feel like they kind of advertised, hey, these people are gonna be on there, and then they were just sitting in the crowd. So that was a little bit of a letdown, but not much. I mean, Penta was probably the biggest because we were pretty excited for him, and we didn't have any word that it wasn't happening until like we heard in there.
Yeah. Jose, anything else you want to add about your experience at that show?
No. I mean, it was overall, I think, one of the better ones that I've done for WWE. It was cool. It was I think the arena made a lot of sense for them to go there. It was, like you said, futuristic with all its negatives, but I think it fit for the whole theme of like Raw on Netflix, first time ever. That was pretty cool. And subscribe to Wade, go VIP, do all those cool things.
Thank you, Jose. Appreciate you joining us and sharing that experience. And I hope your son appreciates that generous gift. That's a lot of money.
Yeah. Yes, Wade. Thank you. Thank you guys.
Nice to talk to you, Jose.
Awesome.
Take care, Chris.
Jose mentioned it, so we'll plug it. For the price of 1/3 or 1/4 of a WWE Upper Deck ticket, you can get a year of VIP benefits. PWTorch.com/GoVIP. And I was going to joke like we should raise the price because like if that's what you get for one show, what are we doing here? We put in a whole year's worth of work, and but yeah, go check it out. You can also there's all kinds of ways to sign up. PayPal. We do not do face recognition, although that's not there's I mean, you can use your Apple account to get a subscription. You just search PWTorch on your podcast app, the Apple podcast app on your iPhone, and when you do that, there's a charcoal colored logo that pops up, PWTorch VIP. Download, subscribe to that for free, and then you can unlock all the VIP shows within it using your Apple account. So that's one way to go VIP. Credit card, debit card, PayPal, and also Patreon. And you can search us in Spotify, PWTorch VIP, in both Spotify and Patreon, and get a 7-day free trial of our VIP podcasts. And you have different tiers you can choose and different price points. Full VIP membership unlocks 35 plus years of archives, hundreds of retro radio shows from the 90s, including my run on KFAN for years in the early 90s with live caller format, big special guests, 20 plus years of our podcast era on PWTorch VIP, over 1,800 back issues of the Pro Wrestling Torch Weekly newsletter, new ones every week. My cover story on Raw Netflix is in this week's issue. And an ad-free website. We have about 125 on-demand interviews and podcasts I've done with ex-WWE creative team members, sharing tons of behind-the-scenes stories about the 2000s and 2010s. Brian Gewirtz. I won't even list. It's just a long list of people who worked alongside Vince McMahon and Paul Levesque and behind the scenes in WWE. That's on the sidebar of every article page on the VIP website. So anytime you're in the mood, you can click on that and play it. On and on. I could go on about the benefits, but go check it out. We list them all at pwtorch.com/govip. And if you enjoy our approach to covering wrestling, there's not a lot of bombast, not a lot of false. We're not like fanboys. We're not like taking sides. We're not partisan. We just try to call it as we see it. Mm-hmm. I've got a lot of experience covering this business, a lot of contacts. Stay in touch with people in the business. I pass along insights and insider information as I can. And there's more of that on the VIP side of things. I think if you enjoy the show and have chosen to listen to us for free, you can get in all our free shows with the commercial break skipped right past. So it's a much more streamlined listening experience. And then a lot of VIP podcasts, including the post pay-per-view roundtables that I host, which are VIP exclusive. All right, well, let's get back to a little bit more talk about SmackDown before we sign off for tonight. Chris, bring up another topic from SmackDown that you're itching to talk about or have something to say.
What do you make of Los Garza versus Pretty Deadly, right? There's another situation of tweeners, right? Los Garza functioning as tweeners, and I think they're trying to play them out to see which way the audience is going to go with them. I happen to really find myself excited by them. So I was curious what you thought with that angle.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. Tessator said at one point, I'm excited to be on the Blue Brand because we get to have so many tag. It's such a great tag team division, and I didn't know Raw didn't have one. But it was kind of its way because they're going to spend a lot of in-ring time on 2 tag team matches. Pretty Deadly have been diminished, to find down quite a bit as just kind of comedy jokes, and Angel and Alberto have been kind of jobbers too, unfortunately. Like they haven't been protected, so you have that headwind when you put them out there. And you expect them to hold the audience's attention for 9 minutes. Yes, there's a commercial break, a double box commercial break where you got to see the action on the side of the screen. But I think it plays into the notion that, it's better to have a babyface and a heel, clear cut things. But there's times where you just go, hey, it's a 9-minute match on a 3-hour show. The stakes are high enough. It's to earn a tag team title shot. And these are 2 teams that are trying to prove they are more than their push, I guess. And it was a good match. I mean, they're 4 good wrestlers. So I wasn't like lamenting the match. I need almost all TV matches to feel like they are it's part of the journey of the wrestlers who are in the match, that there's ramifications for what happens. And this had that, which helped make up for the fact that these guys have largely lost or been treated as jokes for a while. But I thought they set it up, nicely enough. I mean, everyone arguing backstage and then the GM going, oh, you two wrestle. It's a little bit of a trope, but I accept it because, what are you going to do? I mean,
right.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's, I guess when I say that, there are answers to that. There's other ways you could do it, like announce all your matches ahead of time and act like there's a governing body that plans ahead. WWE doesn't do that, Chris. But whatever. So yeah, elaborate more on what you think.
So seeing the last 2 or 3 weeks, whenever we've seen them being pushed as Los Garza, right, and having distinct branding away from Legado del Fantasma, I think is good, because it makes them feel less reductive, right? I mean, there was that period within the last year and a half where there was a lot of the kind of ethnic groups, right, that were clashing with each other, or it felt very contained in a way that I think expanding Los Garza out to be more as a tag team, right? That it's not LWO versus Legado del Fantasma. It's skilled wrestlers fighting other skilled wrestlers in their own ways, right? Their own conflicts. I think is really good. And it seems like the crowds have been behind Los Garza. It took a while in this match, but I felt like they built up some kind of natural, organic presence behind them this evening in ways that they haven't done the past couple weeks.
I think that both Humberto and Garza, I have to say Humberto, Angel and Humberto, I have to say now, not to differentiate. I've been fans of both of them for for years. I mean, I feel like they were worthy of protecting more. They stay in good shape. They work hard in the ring. They've got good look. I mean, I don't think they have to just be like utility guys who almost always lose. So if this is the beginning of that, I'm for that. Pretty Deadly are entertaining. There's a little redundancy with Austin and Waller with them. It's sort of, I mean, they're obviously not carbon copies. There's big differences between them, but they play a similar role. So I wouldn't have them both on the same brand. Hopefully it doesn't shake out that way. But they're good too. They're good in the ring. And so I think you can be the butt of jokes and, be a wisecracking tag team who want to produce a musical. BJF says I'm still waiting for Pretty Deadly the musical.
Yes.
And also be credible in the ring. I don't think it's it's one is. I think they both can coexist. So I hope so. Yeah. What'd you think of the Motor City Machine Guns and their segment backstage, and then how they were featured tonight? Otherwise,
I loved them. I'm loving what I'm seeing with Motor City Machine Guns.
They gave them 13 minutes, and it was a good match.
Yeah, it was. It was fast paced.
It always is with MCMG.
Yeah, they're very fun to watch, and everything they do feels meaningful, right? Nothing feels thrown away. The business with Pretty Deadly, I think tonight, going back to them real quick, is I'd like to see them. They could play fun as the flowery, bombastic characters, but in the ring could suddenly become hard-hitting bruiserweights, right? Like in that British style. So that's what I'd like to see. But going back to Motor City Machine Guns, even though they're obviously older than some of the tag teams, and they're coming in as the vets, right, as your favorite tag team's favorite tag team, they're still moving and still working like young champs in some ways. So I loved what I saw tonight, and I hope they keep working that way.
There's some chat about the announcing. We talked a little bit about Wade Barrett and Joe Tessitore being assigned to SmackDown, wearing the blue, taking pride in it, talking about what they like about SmackDown. Ken Arnold says, I'm happy they made the right call to keep Joe Tessitore and Wade Barrett together on SmackDown. I'm glad Corey Graves is off commentary. Hopefully they'll find something better for him to do. Goodfellas said, yeah, Graves is a great second chair, but his run at the number one spots, he seemed overwhelmed and very vanilla and lost his personality. And then Ken adds, I can see a chemistry and bond that's developed between Tessitore and Barrett. Don't break that up anytime soon. So yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of Tessitore and Barrett. I think there is a chemistry there. I think there's an affection they have for each other. Barrett, Tessitore is subservient. Is that the right word? Deferential. Not subservient. Deferential to Barrett and his knowledge. And Barrett is really good at his role, and I don't think he needs to be part of a three-man booth. I mean, just for environmental impact. Don't have a third person flying to these shows. Whatever. I mean, it's like, why add a negative and just take up a seat and pay extra? It doesn't make any sense. There's not value in that. There's occasions a three-man booth makes sense. It's rare. And I think Barrett's the best color guy they've got. Corey Graves going to NXT, I'm going to look forward to. I hope he's a regular with Booker, because he kind of can honestly call out Booker for just Booker is almost a disqualifying factor for me with NXT, and in terms of how counterproductive his commentary is, and how just cliche and just random exclamations that don't fit anything. It's just he's just not good at that. He's great at some things. I just can't believe they've chosen to put him in a position where I think he undercuts the product and embarrasses himself on a weekly basis. And that sounds mean. And I know if he's listening, I'm sorry, but I think he's really good in a lot of ways. I've interviewed him multiple times. I think his book was good. He was a great interview guest. He's engaging. And I just think on a personal level, he's likable. I just don't think color commentary is his thing. Me playing at a piano bar isn't my thing. That's what I mean. Why then don't do it for 10 years? Yeah.
Well, the role of the commentary is never to center their own self. And I think that's what Booker does sometimes. Not even if he's necessarily talking about himself, but just the way he'll dominate the mic in such a way that he is centered, and it does, as you say, take away from the wrestlers. I was a fan of Tessitore, not from his actual sports stuff, but I first saw him on Holy Moly, the miniature golf show he did with.
Yep, I saw some of that.
Raw. Yeah, that show was awesome. He's really funny, and I don't think they've tapped into that yet. They have not let him unlock that super dry humor. The other thing that I think he could do, and this is, again, I'm not a professional, is I'd like him to look at the camera a bit more than he does, which I think would go far in making that connection with the audience. Right?
I don't have a big problem with him reading promotional spots, but looking down and clearly reading a screen or notes as he does it. It's a promotional spot. You're serving your sponsors. You want to get the date right. That's fine. I mean, I think Michael Cole doesn't need that, and if you can memorize it, it's better. But especially early on, I got it. I think by now I'd like to see less of it. What I do not like is him looking down. Ask me, do you like pizza, Chris?
Hey, Wade, do you like pizza?
I like thin crust pizza. The sauce has to be red. I'm not into the white sauce.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
It's your opinion. And so they go to a segment, they go to him on camera, and it's like, what do I think about this, Wade Barrett? Let me read the notes in front of me that were prepared. That's what it comes across as. So, if whether it's a tick that he does where it's like he's looking down, but he's really not reading, I think he's reading. And that should be something you can talk about. So I saw that tonight. I think he's terrific.
I did too.
But that I think is that'd be a way to improve, and I think it's doable.
Yeah, and he didn't do any of that on the golf show. It was such a natural kind of connection. So that's would be my one tip.
Maybe he gets more familiar with the product and feels less like the stakes of screwing up and undercutting probably terrifies him. So he just would rather be a guy who's caught reading his opinion someone else wrote for him or he wrote earlier.
And I'd probably do the exact same thing. Yeah.
Well, and I would be hard on you too, because you shouldn't. You should
have
your opinion and spout it off. Nobody wants to look at somebody read an opinion that someone else wrote for them.
Right.
The other thing is, I still think there's a little bit of the cadence that sounds like he's reading a children's book to kindergartners. And he wants to have a style. Howard Cosell School of Announcing. I hope he just loosens up in that way. So and he's way better than he was. First couple of weeks, there were times where it was just like, dude, be human. Right. And his smile, now I'm just picking on him, and I really think he's doing a terrific job. But the smile sometimes looks like we're smiling for a photograph, and we're holding a smile. Yeah. That's and it's not natural. I want him to loosen up and just be comfortable. And I think Wade Barrett can bring that out of him. And hopefully by mid-year, none of this stuff is happening with him anymore, because I think he has a chance to be a generationally really good announcer. I think his strengths are overwhelming any of the negatives we're kind of picking on him here about.
And I wonder if, I know he was a fan. He just watched it, grew up watching it. It's got to be that situation where you're like, I can't believe I get to do this at this dream job. And, you're like you said, you're so nervous to screw up at the thing you love so much that you inadvertently do screw up a little bit, right? I've done that plenty of times in my line of work, in my career. So I totally get it. And like you, I think there's something there that could be explosive, right? That could be awesome. And it just hasn't come out, but it's there. Just hasn't come out.
Yeah. Some talk a little off, it's announcing, but about Michael Cole and Pat McAfee. Sadler version 3 says, I wish Graves was with Cole on Raw and Pat appearances were limited to big shows. His style being around every week will get annoying again. Doesn't take every week. It just takes 10 minutes and he's annoying.
Yeah.
I know there are people who are fans of Pat. Goodfellow 1422 goes, I love Pat and Cole, but I'm a McAfee guy. I connect with him. Fair enough. Obviously, They see something in him. They also see he's a big influential name in sports media, and they, sort of feel lucky to have him in some way. But I think he at times is counterproductive or gets lost and doesn't know the product as well as he should and gets kind of full of himself. But I mean, he's paid to be a bombastic media personality, and Michael Cole loves him. So at least Cole is happy.
Yeah. And you kind of wonder why, must be some bond they have behind the scenes, because as I understood it, Cole helped instruct and teach a lot of the other commentators, right?
Yeah.
But Pat obviously didn't pick up any other tips from him, and yet they still have this relationship. Yeah.
Well, Rivers Westwood in the chat says, do they think Cole and Pat are good, or did they just do it because of the seniority of Cole and the fame of Pat? I know there's people in WWE who are frustrated by Pat, and they just don't. They know they can't say anything. They think he is absolutely at times counterproductive to the product and distracting and makes it about him. But, Pat's got a lot on his plate. He's busy. He's got a lot of demands, and this is a, sort of a dream thing for him to do. But he's, flying around on his private jet, going from one thing to the other, being a big shot and making all his money. But you know what? He doesn't have to be there, and he is. And I think that the everlasting endearing aspect of him is he does not need to be there. And he wants to be there, and there's something to be said for joy of performance, even if at times you're self-indulgent, counterproductive, and obsessed with poop.
I guess I haven't noticed him being very scatological, but
how would you not? We talk about it all the time, and every week he says poop.
God.
Like it is I don't think he's gone 2 weeks not bringing up a scatological reference.
Dude, it's
on
probably
commentary.
because I'm like desensitized to it with my son.
Yeah, I can see that.
I deal with it, like listen to the stuff he listens to. I'm like, oh god.
But he's like a 40-year-old man, and he'll just out of nowhere, whatever age he is, around that.
Yeah.
He's just like, and all of a sudden he's just like, we'll say something about poop, and you're like, where did that come from? And it's not kink shaming. It's just keep it in an appropriate zone when we're not having to listen to
right.
you
That's
in front
true.
of millions of people. Goodfellas wants to give a shout out to Lillian. Lillian on SmackDown killed it tonight. Good to see her back. I've interviewed her. She's really nice. I've been on her show. She's been on mine, and she's really good at what she does. She had a break from it, did some other stuff. And I think it's cool that they, brought her back. Let's see. Some comments on what we've just been talking about. Junaid says Baird and Tessitore is one of the top 5 greatest commentary teams in WWE and wrestling history. I'm being genuine, he says. Great chemistry, knowledge, and they always say the right things. That's big praise. Junaid's not going to say that just flippantly. I'm not quite there yet, but I'm not. When I say he has a chance to be generationally great, he does. I think he's on a good track. Ken Arnold says I do think Tessitore is genuinely happy to be working with WWE. This doesn't feel like any prior outsiders who were brought in under Vince. I think it was a Nick Khan pitch, or was it Lee Fitting? No, Lee Fitting, I think, was a fan of his and had pushed for a while for him to be brought in. So he has, friends in high places, but it doesn't come across. He doesn't come across as a guy who goes, well, I got a friend in high place, so I don't have to try.
Right.
And fans will pick up on that if you think you're a big shot from the sports world. But he's going to get a good steady paycheck, and it's tough for announcers to get a good steady paycheck for years at a time. I mean, it's gigs, and then you get dropped, and you do regional sports, and it's hit or miss. So
the thing is, he doesn't seem like somebody who is pretending like he knows it all, right?
Right.
He's
that's helpful.
there. He's learning. He's talking, and he'll take correction. There have been a few times where where he said Death Valley Driver, and it's a Michinoku, and he'll roll with it, right? Yep. And so I really like that about him. Like, he's there to call it. He's there to have a blast. He's there to learn, and I'll take that any day.
I like BJF says I like Joe. He's like a less enthusiastic Morrow, although I love Morrow Ronaldo. Sadler version 3 says I think Cole loves working with Pat. He praises him in every interview. Yeah, he does. Goodfellas says I think Pat points out details that are important at times, which you're right. 100% does. He 100% doesn't know the product up and down. Pat's Pittsburgh accent can get annoying. I know, because I live year round in Pittsburgh, and it's too much. Goodfellas says pineapple on pizza is a crime. Ken Arnold says pineapple on pizza is great with bacon and ranch. BJF started all this by going, as long as he doesn't say he likes pineapple on pizza. I like
Okay.
pineapple on pizza. I think pineapple, back in the day before I was vegan, I had Canadian bacon and pineapple. I thought that went well together. There's vegan Canadian bacon at Parkway Pizza here in Minneapolis, which is fantastic. It's some of the best pizza ever, period, regardless of if it has dairy and meat on it. And pineapple and vegan Canadian bacon from Herbivorous Butcher is fantastic. I recommend it to anyone coming to Minneapolis. But mostly I don't put pineapple on my pizza. But I find it a good novelty, but it's not my main go-to.
I thought we could have been friends, Wade.
Oh, you don't care?
We could have been friends.
What?
No. Pineapple on pizza, I'll eat it. I don't ever order it. I'm not one of those people that's like, no way.
But there are people who feel strongly against it.
Yeah, and I don't understand that. Sadler, yeah. I grew up with the Canadian bacon and pineapple pizza, the Hawaiian pizza. My parents would get that a lot, so I'll eat it. Don't love it.
Yeah. I didn't think I would love it, and I was around people who loved it. I'm like, that looks ridiculous. Why are you doing that? And around age 30, I tried it. I'm like, hey, this kind of works.
What's the vegan Canadian bacon? What is that? Is that
it's just made of plant protein. Like, there's Beyond Meat, Impossible Burgers, Burger King has. You can get a Burger King Impossible Whopper. It's indistinguishable. It's indistinguishable from a regular Whopper.
My wife's a vegetarian.
Yeah, chili today with Beyond Meat and with 4 different kinds of beans and tomato sauce. And I grew up eating meat. It's just I don't miss it. I don't miss it because I get it. I get plant-based meat. So Herbivorous Butcher is in Minneapolis, and they just make a bunch of basically cold cuts out of wheat gluten, which is the protein that comes in wheat, and they just add all. It's not like pepperoni does not exist in the natural world. Salami and corned beef don't exist in the natural world. It's full of all kinds of other stuff to make it. Bacon
and
needs
a casing.
People go, tofu is bland. Well, so is bacon until you smoke it. There's a reason we put ketchup and mustard on a burger. It's just like we're always adding stuff to stuff. So it's barbecue chicken. Most people don't just eat roast chicken. They get barbecue and they like the crispy stuff on the outside. So whatever. I mean, I've been vegan for almost 20 years, and I have some wild. It's just in full disclosure. I have wild caught fish semi-regularly when in Rome at a restaurant or whatever. But I don't do any dairy, no red meat, no poultry, and it's very specific fish that I'll eat on occasion. But I don't miss it, and I'm hoping in 30 years it pays off.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the factory farming and the suffering of the animals. I want to adopt out of that. It's not what it was like in the 30s and 40s and 50s. That your grandma's farm is not what the animals are living now. They're getting injected with all kinds of crap, and they're unnaturally big, and they can't walk, and they're shoved in cages, and they live horrible unnatural lives that don't see sunlight, and then they get So not to bring everyone down, but that was a part of the decision.
You're pretty passionate about that,
yeah. Besides health and environment, just I don't want to support. I love animals. I think they suffer. I genuinely think animals suffer, and I don't want to be, especially because. My God, there's so much. I eat such a much wider variety of food now than I did before I was vegan. My menu is so much wider and more diverse than it was before. And I was bacon cheeseburgers, chicken fingers, macaroni. It was just I'm eating so much more than I ever did. Such a wider variety, and I'm happier and healthier. So
we don't keep meat in our house. My wife's a vegetarian. We do the same thing. So it's all Impossible or recipes that she's gotten out of some crazy book that I'd never read. I'll eat a burger when I'm out and about, but like you, I don't like making things suffer. And if I can minimize suffering, I think I'm doing okay. I'll leave my suffering to the ring, right? They can suffer for me.
By the way, Rude Dog just testified the vegan butcher shop, Herbivorous Butcher, is great. I went there before that Full Gear that was in Minneapolis.
Oh, okay.
It's so much easier to be vegan now. I mean, almost, there's every restaurant district has a bunch of vegan stuff on the menu. Francis just opened a new location. They're a whole fully vegan place, full menu of just great burgers and shakes and malts. And it's just 20 years ago it was tough. Now it's super easy to be a vegan. But I'm not on a high. I'm sure I make tons of choices that someone else is making better choices than me in other ways. I mean, I'm not acting like I'm superior to everybody else. It really just was an animal suffering. The more I learned about it, I was I just don't want to support this. I don't feel good eating it, and I listened to a podcast, met somebody who was at an open house who was talking about going to an all raw vegan diet, and then I did research. I'm like, I'm going to try this, and I haven't looked back. So, but teach their own.
Good for you. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not. People go, oh, vegans are preachy and all that. It's like I'm just telling my story, but I'm not judging others. It's just my story. And,
well, if more people could actually just sort of live with their convictions, we'd be all right. So good for you.
Yeah. Cool. Email me if you wadekellerpodcast@gmail.com if you want vegan suggestions, if you want to go that way.
Yeah.
By the way, I haven't said this forever, but I mentioned it the other day. If anybody is a smoker and they don't want to smoke, The Easy Way to Quit Smoking by Alan Carr. I know like 15 people read that book, and as soon as they're done with the book, they never smoked another cigarette. It's like the guy's just like I won't even want to give it away. It's like it's a short, easy read, and he's like, smoke while you're reading this, smoke while you're reading this. On the last page, you're not going to want to smoke ever again, and it's true. And I never smoked cigarettes, but I had friends who did, and I had some loved ones and some good friends. I'm like, I heard good things about this book. I gave it to them. They read it, and then it got passed around. So I just say that because it's like people go, it's hard to quit. It's like it's hard. It's like from what people tell me, it's hard to quit for 2 or 3 weeks, and he puts you in a zone where you enjoy that discomfort because you are convinced at the end of that discomfort, you will no longer be a slave to the nicotine addiction. And all the stories that you've been told by all the nicotine patch salespeople and all the doctors who send you to clinic, he's brilliant and it's amazing. And yeah, so anyway,
you are preaching now, man.
You're
stealing my job, man. Yeah, that's my gig.
Yep.
No, quitting nicotine was hard, man. It was one of the hardest things I ever did. Yeah. So I can testify to that.
I read that book for fun twice. Like I was so amazed by Alan Carr's genius and how he approached it, and he applied it. It's something you can apply to other things, like the way he approached that. But yeah.
Well, then maybe we really need to have our conversation about wrestling as sort of like moral behavior shaping. Like I think there's something to this art as a way of shaping our moral imagination, right? So we can talk about smoking, we can talk about all that. I'm drafting something up in my free time on that. So
nice, cool.
Yeah, I'll share it with you.
Yeah, do so. Rivers Westwood says, yeah, that book is magic.
Cool.
Yeah. So, and Goodfellas, read the book, and you might not miss it. He said he quit smoking 20 years ago and he misses it. But yeah, read the book. It's weird, but it might talk you into being less sad. It's weird, but like it's hard. I don't even like to say too much about it. It's just one of those things where you almost want to experience the book to understand like what he like just deconstructs and breaks down false beliefs that people tell themselves that makes them feel like they're suffering by not being a smoker. And the way that he deconstructs these false arguments you can literally, like, there's things that we think we want or need and we literally don't, but we're wired to believe them for a variety of factors. And he covers all of that. It's just brilliant. I haven't thought about the book for years, but as someone on the Fix mailbag this week asked what our favorite podcast was, and then I said, well, I know it was it's called Sleep With Me, and you listen to it to fall asleep, and the guy's brilliant, just like Alan Carr.
Okay, so that's what I thought when you were talking about that book. What it sounds to me is essentially it's slow-paced self-hypnosis is what it sounds like. So by the end of it, you're like, oh, you've internalized and encouraged.
Yeah, I hesitate to say it depends on how loose you are with the word hypnosis, because what I admire about it is it takes fallacies of reasoning that society repeats that have enough connections to people's experience that they believe them to be true and talk themselves into being true, that can be explained away in a way where you're left feeling foolish for believing them, and your emotions that are attached to those deep-seated beliefs about how hard it is to quit smoking and be an ex-smoker get deconstructed in your brain in a way where you get deprogrammed from the falsities. And it's what he did was just amazing. Yeah. That sounds good. Yeah. So if you get the book for a loved one. If you're not, even if someone's a smoker, tell me if it works. I know a couple of people who went back, but almost everybody didn't, and they're like, yeah.
That's amazing. That's awesome.
All right, I'm done.
Sweet. All right, that was fun. That was great. That was awesome, man.
A window into a couple just random passions.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't say that book's a passion. It's something that it was a long time ago that my friends quit smoking them. But when I see them, they're not smoking anymore, and they never did.
Yeah.
So I sometimes forget that when you know something that works, it's like tell people.
Yeah.
Spread the word.
Right. Yeah. That's cool.
Yep. All right. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
You're right up on SmackDown, and we will be by Monday with the Raw Post Show and Wednesday after Dynamite. Search Wade Keller in your podcast app. I'm told I don't do this enough, but I'm supposed to say, please like this show, comment below, and subscribe to our channel. Thank you. I read that like Joe Tessitore.
There you go.
Yep. But seriously, like our show just right now. Just like it. It helps and it adds up over time. And we're just kind of still feel like we're easing into YouTube with what we're doing. And engage in the comment section. Thanks to our chat. We just have a great chat. Sometimes people get on each other's nerves, but it just sort of dissipates and doesn't become the tone of things. So that's very cool. And
active.
Yeah. And just a good group of regulars, and we welcome the new people too. Okay, thanks, Chris. We'll sign off there, and we'll talk to all of you next time.
All right, see ya.